Welcome back to the Get Good Scrub podcast. It's your boy, cool Guy Fonz, with our very own Viperon himself, MarcTheCyborg.
Okay, I got nothing. Who's Viperon?
Yeah, the deepest of cuts. On the Sega Master Series, one of the first third-party games published was by Activision, a game called Cyborg Hunter. Main villain was a cyborg called Viperon.
Wow, how deep did you have to Google to come across that one?
You know, like, with all the talk of this week, it was actually pretty easy to find, so...
Wow,
which
they're
we will be
on
getting
Sega
to.
Master System. That's it's hard to think of Activision as being that old, but I guess they have been around forever.
They're like one of the original video game companies.
Yeah, you just kind of think of them as like hitting the big time in around the PlayStation generation when they started with like Tony Hawk and then ran that into the ground. Then they made Guitar Hero, then they ran that into the ground. Then they made Call of Duty, and the whole company collapsed and they got bought out by Microsoft.
Oh man, yeah, probably the biggest news of the week. But before we get to it, we got some other things we got to take care of, get out of the way. First things first, were new releases. And on January 12th, finally, God of War was released on PC.
Boy.
Yeah, I bet you're happy playing that at 60 frames per second.
Well, technically, I've already played it at 60 frames a second because they did patch it for PS5, and I replayed the whole game to get the footage for the video I made on Geeks and Gamers that was the history of the franchise. So I did pick up the PC version regardless, and I've been running it at 4K ultra settings, which is, there's actually one of the neat things in the PC God of War is there's an original settings mode. So there's like a graphics setting that you can pick that's basically just PS4 settings, and you can make it that, but you can also pump it up to high and then ultra. It runs very well because I can run it at ultra in 4K at 60 frames a second locked in the bedroom with a 3080. And it doesn't really drop frames at all until you get to Alfheim. And then it starts chugging a little bit, but there's DLSS that you can then throw on. I threw on DLSS quality and totally evened out 60 again. The above 60 frames a second modes, like when I play on this computer here, are a little wonky. Like it seems to be kind of an inconsistent frame rate, but maybe they'll eventually work that out. But either way, it's an impressive port and it looks fantastic. Though I did find out the hard way now that Give Me the God of War difficulty might be bullshit. Because it's the only difficulty I hadn't played yet, except for easy mode, because there's no point in me playing easy mode.
We don't do that here, Scrubs.
Yeah, normal or give me a challenge, or I think the first one might be, I don't know. Give me, I forget what the main difficulty is, but I think give me a story is the easy mode, and then give me a challenge is the hard mode, and then give me the God of War is like the insane difficulty, like the one that's like a meme. But the new God of War kind of plays a bit like a Souls game, so I was like, I'll give me the God of War and see if I can get through this. Here's where the issue is, though. There's a lot of enemies that you will be fighting at once in this game, and a lot of them with ranged attacks, which in an old school God of War game is fine because you can see the whole battlefield pretty much. This game, though, it's really tight field of view, like over the shoulder. It's almost like Gears of War. And I'm constantly getting killed by enemies that are off screen chucking projectile attacks at me. And it's like, it's like the combat's tight enough that I can play it, and I don't really feel like there's too many bullshit deaths happening until I'm all of a sudden getting killed by enemies that I couldn't see. So it's like, if I could zoom the camera out a bit, I think that this would play a bit better. Because even like a Souls game, the camera's pretty far back. Like you can see a good chunk of your surroundings, even when you're focused in on one target. But in Give Me the God of War difficulty for God of War, never ever use the target focus because you're gonna die. If you're just looking right at one enemy, you will be killed by things you can't see. There is a pretty cool thing though. You ever play Resident Evil Remake? The original one?
Yeah.
Okay, so you remember the Crimson Head zombies? there is a mechanic that's like that on this difficulty where if you hit an enemy a couple times, they'll kind of set on blue fire for a second, and then if they finish that animation, their eyes will be like glowing blue, and they become like an elite enemy essentially. So the problem is, though, it's like they can do it more than once. Basically, you have to throw the axe or get Atreus to shoot the bow at them to stop them from doing that. But if you don't stop them from turning that way, every single enemy you're fighting could all of a sudden be like a mini-boss, and that can be pretty overwhelming too. However, I'm about a quarter of the way through Alfheim, like 3 battles in. So I've been making progress, but I might end up giving up on it.
There. Does it get you more or less pumped for God of War 2?
I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I think God of War Ragnarok I'm probably going to play on PS5. Like, I don't think that's one that'll be like, I'll just wait for PC. I think Horizon Forbidden West, though, I just might wait till it gets ported to PC. Because I really loved Horizon, but after playing it with a mouse and keyboard, I'm kind of just like, yeah, this is the way to do it. And so
Really?
now that, like, Horizon's coming out on PS5 soon, too. It's like, I think it comes out like the same day as Elden Ring, or roughly the same week. And I'm just kind of like, I think I can wait on Horizon.
Yeah. Well, like...
Or at least maybe wait till it's on sale or something, but I don't think I'm going to get Horizon right away. I'm also going to be busy with Elden Ring.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, but judging by the way the Sony PC ports have been selling, I doubt I'll have to wait 4 years for Horizon. I'm willing to bet by next year it'll be there.
Yeah, Sony's going to have to switch something up with all the news this week, but we'll get to that in a sec. Rainbow Six Extraction was also released this week. Ubisoft staple. Released on all platforms. Doesn't sound like anything groundbreaking. Like, if you like Rainbow Six, I guess you'll like this one, but like, by no means has anyone said anything special about it.
My worry is that there seems to be a lot of Left 4 Dead likes coming out these days. Like, we just had Back 4 Blood. The World War Z came out. There's also the Alien one, Fireteam Elite, I think it was. And then the one I'm looking forward to, Warhammer 40k Darktide, that was made by the same people who did Vermintide. But I don't know, this seems like a market that's getting really, really saturated. And I don't think that I don't think the 4-player or 3-player co-op shooters where you fight waves and waves and hordes of enemies genre can support 10 games in a year. Like, it's like maybe 2, possibly 3, but I think once you're hitting which one of these do we even play? Like, how many groups of friends who really love fighting waves of zombies or aliens or whatever?
Yeah, whatever the waves are.
Let's do a whole other one of these. But I thought my favorite thing about Rainbow Six Extraction existing was the title of Skill Up's review, which is, I quote, "Rainbow Six Extraction really, really blows." I just saw that title. I'm just like, I don't even need to watch that video. That whatever Skill Up says in that video, not going to be as good as the title. Congratulations on writing a hilarious title, but I'm not watching the video.
We're ending this on a high note.
Yeah. So I should take that as a lesson to not be too clever with our podcast titles.
A little more close to home, Drinkbox released Nobody Saves the World.
Yes.
Toronto-based company, released on Xbox One and Xbox Series X. You actually got a chance to play this?
Yes, it is lots of fun. Nobody Saves the World is a game where you play as this little, just totally white, like blank character who finds a magic wand and then gains the ability to shapeshift. So it's kind of like a top-down Zelda-style dungeon crawler, but you can shift into all these different forms, like a mouse or this big tough soldier guy or this like female archer. And you have different attacks with different experience points and different little quests for each one of them. So, and the quests will rotate. So they do this kind of cool thing where you play as the rat, and the rat has like a poison bite attack, and you'll have a little sub quest that says kill 50 enemies with the poison bite attack. I forget exactly what it's called. I think it's called Gnaw. And then you get those, and then it'll give you basically not a level up, but like a quest complete thing, and give you some experience and some currency that you can use to open the doors in the game. But then eventually, once you've maxed out the quest for that character in that little area, it'll just say, okay, you've done all the quests for this character class. So you can keep playing as that one if you want, but you're incentivized to switch to a different one and then kind of change up your play style. And like different enemies are weak to different attacks. And I only played about an hour of it, but I had a really good time. And the Drinkbox they're a really great studio. They made the Guacamelee games, if anyone's played those. They also made a really cool Vita game called Severed, which I hear is really good to play on an iPad, though I've only ever played the Vita version. But yeah, Drinkbox Studios, Toronto, hometown team, and Nobody Saves the World, definitely worth checking out. Pretty sure it's on Game Pass too on Xbox.
The amount of games you play sometimes is unreal to me, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I played Nobody Saves the World for 45 minutes, and it was just yesterday. I was studying for a good chunk of time, decided to take a break. I was like, if I get into Monster Hunter or Halo, I might get pulled into playing for a few hours. So I fired up Nobody Saves the World, and I do not regret it.
Hey, that's why you're the cyborg and I'm the scrub. Yeah. Speaking of, though, you picked up Monster Hunter Rise, the PC port of the Switch game. Yes. Developed by Capcom, released on January 12th. How you liking that?
That I played a whole hell of a lot of. Actually, let's check my current Steam time on Monster Hunter Rise. I am at 21.9 hours.
Yo, Monster Hunter games, like, they creep up on you. I think the last time I checked, I put 400 or 500 hours into World. And I was like, I'm at like around
330 in World. So you've got more in World than I do. But Monster Hunter Rise, I really, really, really like it, and it's kind of, it's not for the reasons I expected, because I sort of thought that Rise was just going to kind of play like Monster Hunter World DLC, because in a lot of ways, it looks like it. So I was streaming it the other day, and like people were like, hey, is it worth getting this if I have Monster Hunter World? I'm like, that's a tough question, because this is different than World, Rise is different than World, but in a way that isn't immediately obvious. Although if you have a lot of experience with World, you're going to pick up the controller for Rise and be like, oh man, nothing I know how to do works properly. So like there were some growing pains there where I'm like, man, I can't figure out how to even fire my Kinsect using the insect glaive. So I had to really kind of like look at the controls and figure out what I was doing wrong. But once you start getting into its systems, like there's simple things like you don't have the ability to put a little pin in the monster that you're hunting, which gives you the bigger wasp swarm that you can follow almost like a little arrow on the screen as a waypoint to where you're supposed to go. You just have to navigate with the map. So that was like off the bat, I'm like, man, I'm going to spend so much time just like wandering around aimlessly. Like this sucks. And like, how am I even going to know all the times that I just would make a wrong turn or climb up the wrong vine or jump off the wrong cliff? But what's crazy is they give you this thing called the wire bug, which is almost like a little Spider-Man thing, or it's like a bug that shoots up into the air and then it like casts a wire down to you that you then pull up, and you can use that to kind of scale walls and move faster. And in addition, for your Palico, which is the little cat sidekicks that you had in World, you have a Palico, but you also have a Palamute, which is like a dog, but it's a big dog, and you can kind of treat it like a horse. So if you're chasing a monster, all of a sudden you can just hold B and hop up on your dog and then ride the dog after the monster at a really fast speed. And at least Fonz will appreciate this, because wow, when I figured this out, game changer. When you're riding on the dog, you can use potions and you can sharpen your weapon while moving.
Yeah, sharpening your weapon, like that was always like the key to either winning or losing a battle in World. Like you choose the wrong time to sharpen your weapon, and you're in for a world of hurt.
Yeah, because you're a sitting duck. You just gotta kind of like run away and hope that you're protected and can sharpen the weapon for an animation that lasts like 5 to 7 seconds or so. In World, you just in Rise, you can just get close to your Palamute, hold B, hop up on. I named mine Jojo after my dog Jojo. Jojo kind of looks more like a Labrador than a poodle, but I made it Jojo's fur color and named it Jojo, even though it's gigantic and Jojo is very small. My Jojo, real Jojo. But I'll hop up on Jojo's back, ride Jojo around the monster while sharpening my blade, jump off, and continue fighting. In general, I would say that if you enjoyed World, even if you got burned out on World, maybe give Rise a shot. Because I didn't get too far into the Iceborne expansion. I think maybe just because I'd gotten to the point that I'd played enough Monster Hunter World that I think it was also all the climate control stuff in Iceborne where it's like, man, I'm constantly having to give myself medications and things that
they didn't make it clear right off the get-go of how to stay warm. Like, it was really easy, I think, after you figured it out, but like there was a learning curve of staying warm in Iceborne, which bothered me too.
I think that's kind of the thing with Rise is Rise seems to strip out a lot of the really obtuse elements of World.
It seems more streamlined. Right?
Yeah,
like
but it also
is a
pulls away something as simple as like the waypoints, like the Vigorwas waypoints, which I thought would be, oh man, this is getting advanced. Like there's no tracks that you can find, like there's nothing like that. It's just, okay, the monster's icon is on the map. You have a horse that you can ride essentially, and you need to get to it and then chase it. But once you kind of understand that the levels are a lot smaller than the ones in World, so it's easier to kind of zip around the map, and the main town that you're in is just sort of one little strip, and that's it. And there's two other buildings that you can go into, but they're both pretty small too. It's things like just finding your way around is a lot easier. You don't feel as overwhelmed by the systems, so it feels like it being a launching on Switch versus launching on Xbox One and PS4 like World did makes a bit of sense, because this one kind of seems like it's more suited to your casual player who might play on a handheld. Now, I say that, but it's still Monster Hunter. And there's a strong element of you will need to do some studying in order to understand how this game works. Because once I started watching like Boomstick Gaming's video and like 20 tips for Monster Hunter Rise, I was like, oh, this is really pulling together a lot of things about this game that I was not picking up on. And,
did you play it on Switch at all, or just PC version?
I played the demo on Switch, and I really did not like the frame rate. I know that's like probably exactly what you would expect me to say, but going in context, going from playing Monster Hunter World between 60 and 120 frames a second, more or less, it would get inconsistent when it got above 80, I found. So sometimes I cap it at 60, but high frame rate Monster Hunter World, going from that to barely hanging on to 30 frames a second Monster Hunter Rise on Switch, I was just like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Especially because I main an Insect Glaive. The Insect Glaive is like the Darth Maul weapon, essentially, except if Darth Maul could jam his lightsaber into the ground and launch himself up into the air and then air jump. Like, the Insect Glaive's crazy, and so you're constantly rotating the camera around, and doing that at 30 frames a second was not fun for my brain. I was just like, oh my god, this is giving me a headache to look at, even playing on like a little handheld, because I tend to mostly play my Switch in handheld mode. But I just decided, you know what, I'll skip this, because that was still also around the time that Iceborne came out on PC, so I'm like, kind of feeling a bit burned out on Monster Hunter anyways. I'll just not pick this up yet. I'll wait to see if it comes out on PC, and if it doesn't, I guess this is another one of the many Monster Hunter games that I will never play. But it did come out on PC. I picked it up expecting to fiddle around with it a bit while spending most of my time last weekend playing God of War, and I had 21 hours in Monster Hunter Rise now. Yeah. So it just gets its hooks in you. It makes you think, oh man, you've got to play more of this. Although, to be fair, it looks like I have 11 hours in God of War on PC.
The PC ports are taking over finally. Finally, yeah. Sony and even Nintendo are learning that.
Well, Monster Hunter is still Capcom, but Nintendo still has not released a PC port. Then again, the Ryujinx emulator works pretty well. And Metroid Dread looks pretty awesome on PC, so... Yeah. Technically, Nintendo, you're bringing your games to PC. You might as well just make money off them.
Oh, wow.
We're not bringing them to PC. And it's like, aren't you, though? If you're not, we are, so...
Someone is, that's for sure.
Step up. I would like to give you money for these, though I technically own 2 copies of Metroid Dread anyways, because I have the collector's edition physical, and I have it on... at least from me for Metroid games, yes.
Moving on to, I think, your most popular, not your most popular, probably the topic you are going to enjoy talking the most, because every time I've seen you on the internet this week, you've been talking about this. But on Tuesday, the Italian Senate was
Yes.
performing a
I was hoping
session.
you were going for this and
Oh
not the
man.
Activision
No, this
merger.
like everywhere you've been talking about this. So
Viva
anyways,
Italia.
as said, the Italian Senate was performing a session through Zoom where they got bombed by an NSFW video of our girl, Tifa Lockhart, in a rather compromising position with what seems to be Cloud. I can't say I watched the whole video.
I didn't see the video that they saw. I've just been enjoying the memes.
You've just been
and
reacting? Oh, man.
no, sheer concept of the situation and the memes that this has generated have been so fun. Like it's a very funny situation off the bat. Can you imagine a Canadian parliamentary meeting where there's just all of a sudden some Bayonetta hentai on and Trudeau? Like, what would he say?
Oh, but like, have you seen so they have a video of the main speaker of the Senate, and they were about to talk to a Nobel Peace Prize winner about digital security, by the way, which I thought was pretty funny. So like this girl's talking, and like she passes on to the speaker, the Nobel Prize winner. And you could see her look at the screen, but she doesn't say anything. And then everyone in the Zoom call is like, yo, don't you see what's happening? She's like, oh, yeah, no, that's wrong. And we're like, there is a spot that, like, she looked at it and she's just like, all right, that's just what's happening now. That's cool. Like, the pause kills me. And what's even better is the creator of the video, Dragic, I think his name is, on Twitter, Dragk. He's not the one who Zoom bombed the call, but he made the video. He's got a weird Twitter, let's just say. That's all he makes is all this kind of content. And he's like, hey,
Probably makes those guys make a lot of money, to be fair. Like there's a lot of Patreons that's like, yeah, it's like get to my $500 a month tier on Patreon and you can pick the next video I'm gonna make.
Wow. He's got a lot of videos. It got weird. It's really
well,
weird.
I mean, here's where I think it's less weird though. At least as far as my segment of the internet has been showing me, the Italian people seem really on board with this, or at least Italian teenage boys, and they've embraced Tifa Lockhart as an Italian icon, which I think is wonderful. It's like, so there's all these like memes coming out of her like in a sexy dress holding an Italian flag, or like her tank tops painted with the red and green.
Like I said,
like,
you've
white in the
been
middle.
loving this. I think it's hilarious.
Because it's so funny. Like, I think it's also kind of funny that I have not seen any like articles from like Kotaku or Polygon being pissed at it. Like, it seems like everyone is just kind of like, yeah, that's really funny. I don't know. I think it's oddly wholesome. Though my favorite meme is Tifa Lockhart photoshopped onto Emperor Palpatine's body, and it says, "I am the Senate."
Oh man,
killed me.
I'm just surprised they caught a day that the Italian Senate was in session. They're so few and far in between.
I don't know too much, but that is really the only thing I know about Italian politics, to be fair.
I know they have a prime minister and a president, and I don't understand why, but I know that there are two of them. So, and they're different guys. Or I guess different people, but at the present time, they're probably guys. Moving on.
Let's hope they don't have a turf war, because you know what happens when Italians have turf wars. Nothing good.
Moving on, we have the biggest news of the week, possibly the year, depending on if Sony retaliates.
It's possibly in the history of the industry.
Yeah, it's by far the biggest acquisition ever, but announced on Tuesday, January 18th, Microsoft purchases Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion. And the fact that they had to buy Activision Blizzard means that when Activision bought Blizzard, they couldn't even buy them outright. They had to merge. And Microsoft is just like, you know what, I'm buying you both. deal with it.
Well, Microsoft makes this little thing called Windows, which I love reminding anytime I've seen people on the internet arguing, oh, Microsoft's not buying anyone else. They're probably going to need to be they're probably not going to be able to pay this one back for themselves within the next 20 years. I'm like, guys, do you understand how much money Microsoft makes? Like, you're thinking of Microsoft as Xbox. Microsoft is the people who make the operating system that the entire business world uses, and the Azure cloud, which also most of the business world uses at this point. They have stupid amounts of money. This was a splurge weekend for them at most. Like, they did not need to take out a loan in order to spend $70 billion. It's kind of nuts that they have that kind of coin. Even more nuts is them deciding to spend it on their Xbox division. But I don't think this one's hurting Microsoft in any way at all.
Microsoft
what do you think?
Is worth, or speculated to be worth, over $1 trillion. This is like chump change for them.
Yeah. And for those who do not have wonderful Asian wives, $1 trillion is 1,000 billion.
That's hilarious. So quick thought, like first thoughts. What'd you think about this when it happened?
Well, I made a video on Gaming with Geeks where I kind of go over my thoughts, but basically I'm of two minds on it. In that subjectively, meaning for me, this is a good thing because take, for example, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Activision published, Epic exclusive. The Call of Duty games I haven't really been caring about lately. Oh, here, I guess that's a good example. Call of Duty Vanguard. Thought it looked like absolute trash, so I didn't buy it. Had they maybe not pushed to release it this year and delayed it for a year and worked a little bit harder on the campaign and the story, maybe it would have turned out a game that I would actually want to get into. I was also really on the fence about things like Diablo 4 because I thought Blizzard was kind of going down a weird path, and maybe now that they've got different management, the games might actually turn out being a bit better. But also, I really, really feel for mostly the casual gamers on PlayStation who just bought a PlayStation 5 and their intention was to just buy FIFA and Call of Duty every year for the next 6 years and then buy a PlayStation 6. Because, I mean, granted, those people probably aren't the ones going on, like, red tag deals or whatever you go to look up to see where PlayStation 5s are in stock to get one. So they would have had to just wander into one day. But I never like seeing games taken away from their audience. And there was a good chunk of Call of Duty whose audience was on PlayStation. That said, do you have that statement handy where Phil says something about we're going to ensure that Call of Duty remains on PlayStation and that we honor our contracts? If you don't, basically just Phil Spencer made a statement to that effect saying that we planned it.
I have it. So the statement from Phil Spencer was, I'll just say it to players out there who are playing Activision Blizzard games on Sony's platform. It is not our intent to pull communities away from that platform, and we remain committed to that. Which, honestly, I think that's like, why would you... I don't think there's going to be a rush to take Call of Duty off PlayStation. It makes as much money as it does because it's on all platforms.
Neither do I, but I think at the current state of Call of Duty, the thing that makes tons of money on all platforms is primarily Warzone. And I think that Warzone is going to stay multi-platform forever. I honestly think if they could squeeze Warzone onto Switch, they would. I don't think they're going to, but I do think there is a possibility that eventually they'll make Warzone mobile, that you can actually play against everyone and like introduce to the cross-play community, because there is already Call of Duty Mobile that basically has the same monetization system as Warzone, where it's just battle passes and microtransactions and free to play. I think the mainline Call of Duty games, and again, I'm not basing this on anything except for, I guess to an extent, the Bethesda precedent, because the whole thing was like, oh yeah, they're never going to take Skyrim 2 or like Elder Scrolls 6 away from PlayStation players, and then 6 months after the purchase, it's like, yeah, by the way, Starfield's exclusive and Elder Scrolls is going to be also. But don't worry, you can still play Elder Scrolls Online, which I think Warzone is the equivalent to ESO in this context. Like if Skyrim is Call of Duty Modern Warfare, then Warzone is Elder Scrolls Online. You know?
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any chance they're taking Warzone away. I think that there's a possibility that this year, because Infinity Ward's up, Modern Warfare 2 2022, or Modern Warfare 2, whatever you want to call it, because there was Modern Warfare 1, 2, 3, then Modern Warfare.
Hey, when they
What's the next one going to be called? Modern Warfare Black Ops? Fuck it, why not?
Yeah.
but anyways, the new Modern Warfare game that I'm willing to bet is going to be Infinity Ward's next game. I think there's a pretty good chance that still ends up on PlayStation 5. Maybe PS4 too, because they're probably still going to be doing cross-generation for those. I think, though, the next Black Ops, good chance it'll be 3 years from now, not 2, and very good chance that that's going to be Xbox exclusive. Because I think that will be enough time that people are getting used to seeing all the other Activision series pop up as Xbox exclusives. And I think it'll just be time for Call of Duty at that point.
think they'll pull a couple more years of just like Xbox getting like map exclusivity for a while, or they'll get like advanced.
I don't
kind of like how Sony
doing
was doing it for a while.
I don't think there's any chance Xbox does the map exclusivity thing, because I think that the only benefit they would have to keeping the game on PlayStation right now is the player base, because it would keep the player numbers higher and the player lobbies healthier. So I could see an argument for releasing a free-to-play version of the Call of Duty multiplayer on PlayStation, kind of like with Halo Infinite, how like the multiplayer is free-to-play, and then have it be
the campaign is only on
Call
Xbox.
of Duty Xbox. But here's the catch, though, and here's where I think it might actually turn out to be a very good thing. Because if the campaign, they give 4 years to make instead of 3, or they merge some teams and make it so that it's a bigger team working on a 3-year cycle, and the campaign is really, really good, then it might actually be like, oh, okay, it might actually be worth me getting an Xbox to play this Call of Duty campaign, which is something that you probably wouldn't have thought you'd say 2 years ago. You might have said that if it was Modern Warfare, like the original Modern Warfare, because that was back when the Call of Duty campaign was like one of the big things you'd go for. And the multiplayer being there was like, oh, bonus. And granted, Modern Warfare was the one that kind of made it so that the multiplayer was getting a lot more interesting to people. But I don't know. I think that living in a world where Call of Duty multiplayer is on PlayStation, but the campaign is exclusive to Xbox, it's free or it's included with Game Pass if you have Game Pass, or you can buy it for full price the same way they're selling Halo. Which, I mean, honestly, for me, if you told me, say, Raven Software was making their own new Call of Duty sub-franchise, and they had a good chunk of time to work on the campaign, it's the best Call of Duty campaign ever, I honestly would probably buy it on Steam as opposed to just playing it on Game Pass. But if the Call of Duty campaigns are just like, it's a 5-hour Michael Bay movie, essentially, it's kind of fun, but you'll forget about it the second you finish it, I like that it's like, well, I guess I'll just play it on Game Pass then. Knock it out in a weekend and then move on with my life. Like, I tell you this, I have no interest in Vanguard at all, but if Vanguard was on Game Pass right now, I would at least fire it up. Whereas it's like, okay, I had to pay 80 Canadian dollars to play a Call of Duty campaign that I think looks terrible. No, I'm not going to do that. And I think the multiplayer looks stupid too. I mean, you don't put a red dot sight on an M1 Garand. I'm sorry. Those did not exist during World War II.
Oh,
what are you doing?
Speaking of
end stage Activision right here.
I'm gonna go through a couple lists of. So first of all, just because you mentioned it, I do find this as a double-edged sword as well. Like, this is clearly just a purchase of copyrights and trademarks at the end, right? Like, there's going to be a lot of layoffs. Like, the actual company and the buildings itself, I don't think Microsoft cares about, but it's just the access to all the IPs.
Well, there's studios there. Like, I mean, the aforementioned Raven Software, Vicarious Visions, who just made Diablo 2 Resurrected.
Yeah, but I think we've also seen this a lot. Like, when there's an acquisition like this, a lot of things will start to get merged together. A lot of, like, there's going to be a lot of layoffs regardless, right? Like, they can't keep all of
Probably, but I think they're probably going to be keeping the quality even if they're getting rid of the quantity.
Yeah.
Like I think they might trim out a few teams or trim down a few teams, but I think that Microsoft is, I'm going to assume, I've never worked at either company, pay better and treat their employees better than Activision was. And I think that will result, though, in them keeping the talent.
I don't think this sale goes through. Like, we're not even talking about this sale if Activision Blizzard wasn't in the legal mess they're in right now.
On fire.
And at the same time, I'm sure Microsoft did their due diligence to know that if a lot of these things were all in the past, it would also be a lot easier to correct them. But they got Activision Blizzard at a much cheaper price than they would have 2 or 3 years from now. So they'll probably be like, we'll cover you for now, which is actually something I don't like as well. Like, they're basically going to cover for all the mistakes of Activision Blizzard's, like, well, obviously their CEO and the people on top. And they're kind of just going to get out scot-free at this point because they'll all be paid out and get a nice bonus. But like you said, like, at least we'll get access to a lot of... Oh, like, if there's any legal consequences, yeah, they'll have to deal with that, but we'll see. Well, time will tell.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that like Bobby Kotick being removed is highly likely, if not 100% assured. And you're right, he might not suffer the same professional consequences that he would have if Activision went down in flames.
Yeah.
Which, let's face it, was in the cards like a week ago. Because I was hearing nothing but bad things about working at Activision, the people leaving Activision. There was all sorts of things about all the Activision Blizzard studios where it seemed like the ship was sinking and there wasn't anything that anyone could do about it. And Bobby Kotick not resigning kind of seemed like his thing was like, like, I'm going down with the ship, which I didn't think was necessarily a good thing. But I think, though, that if there are legal ramifications for things like professional impropriety, if anything, not being the active CEO of an incredibly powerful company in the industry will likely make him more vulnerable to it than less. Because as much as Microsoft's got a lot of money, we will assume that does not include bribing the judicial system.
Yeah, of course.
Because once it gets into legal territory, you're not talking about, let's go easy on him. We're Microsoft, have some money. Or at least that should not be the case.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that it's not, so no one say that I'm talking conspiracies. I'm running with the assumption that the justice system at least works all right.
Let's go through a little bit of a list of all the studios that were involved in this acquisition. So obviously top of the list is Blizzard itself, holding on to the Diablo games, Overwatch, StarCraft. Hopefully we'll see a StarCraft 3, World of Warcraft. We have Sledgehammer Games, which pretty much just does Call of Duty, as well as Infinity Ward, all the Call of Duties.
Yes, but the people who started Sledgehammer and cultivated the studio used to work for a different studio. Do you know what studio that was?
No.
Visceral Games, who made the Dead Space games.
I was going to say that.
Granted, the guy who was the lead on Dead Space left Sledgehammer, has left Sledgehammer since, and he's making it's like a Dead Space looking game that takes place in the PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds world.
Oh my god!
So, like in the PUBG world, but it seems to take place like far in the future, and it's kind of like a Dead Space type game. But anyways, when we get into our fantasy Activision projects, I've got one for Sledgehammer.
They also purchased Treyarch, a bunch of Call of Duty games. They did the Spider-Man 2 2004, which was phenomenal. I love that game.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That was a really good game.
Moving on, we got Beanox that did all the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 that just came out like a couple years ago. So looking forward to playing that.
Wasn't that Vicarious Vision? I thought that was Vicarious Visions who did that. Beanox, though, speaking of Spider-Man, they did a bunch of the Spider-Man games after Treyarch started working on Call of Duty, like Web of Shadows and what was the other one? Web of Shadows. I think The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Shattered Dimension. That was the other one. I was like, there's one that's like kind of like Web of Shadows, but it's named something else.
Beanox is credited for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, but it does say the developer was Vicarious. Interesting.
Yeah, but it was Vicarious Vision's last project. And then that's why people thought that because they did such a good job on Tony Hawk remake, they moved them over to the Diablo 2 remake, and then they absorbed them into Blizzard. Because I honestly think what happened there was they got the Vicarious Visions people over to Blizzard, and they were so much better than everybody at Blizzard that they were just like, okay, you're Blizzard now. Because everyone's quitting. So.
Yeah.
And I mean, we played Diablo 2 Resurrected, and that's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we're going to be looking forward to a lot of the good games coming out, but they also took over High Moon Studios. They have Deadpool, Dark Watch, Radical Entertainment,
The Transformers games, yeah.
Raven.
Radical. Yeah, Radical did Prototype.
Prototype and Prototype 2. They did Hulk, Simpsons
3-1.
Road Rage.
That was a good one too. Or was it Simpsons Hit and Run? Hit and Run, I think, is the one I liked.
Raven Software we've already talked about with the Wolfensteins. X-Men Origins was really good. I remember playing that.
They made one Wolfenstein game. Yeah, the X-Men Origins Wolverine. Quake 4 was Raven.
Yeah.
They recently did Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Singularity is a really solid game that Raven made. Raven's great. Oh, and Hexen. Hexen and Heretic, like the old school fantasy Doom shooters. Wizard Doom, as people from... people who aren't aware of the Hexen games would call modern fantasy shooters.
And let's not forget Crash Bandicoot and Spyro.
Which, that's so messed up when you think about it. Because who created Crash Bandicoot?
Sony.
Even more specifically, who created Crash Bandicoot?
I don't know.
Naughty Dog.
Oh.
The creators of The Last of Us. Who created Spyro?
Wow. Yeah, like that.
Spyro was created by Insomniac, who is currently making the Spider-Man games for Sony, and made Resistance, the Resistance series. So, yeah, now the two, in the PlayStation 1 generation, the two characters who a lot of people thought were going to be like PlayStation's Mario, like the mascot characters, Crash and Spyro, are both Xbox characters now. That's wild.
You were supposed to destroy the not join them.
Yeah, like Crash Bandicoot. Crash Bandicoot 5 is likely to be an Xbox exclusive.
And I think the biggest thing, which a lot of people do mention, but it still goes under the radar, is they got Candy Crush. And
yeah, King, all of King software, and that's what, especially when people are like, yeah, no, like it's gonna take Microsoft forever to pay this off. I'm like, yo, Candy Crush alone is gonna pay for this deal in like 10 years tops.
Oh my god!
And that's if they don't make any money on anything else.
Yo, does your mom play Candy Crush?
I think so, yeah. I think it's like the only game she plays. I don't think she spends any money on it.
My mom doesn't spend any money either on it, but like I think
in-game purchases are a bit too far for boomers. And my mom I'm not making fun of her. She's literally a boomer. She was born in 1955.
Yo, but so how does Candy Crush make money then? If like how many people are spending money on?
Well, I think that it's by law of averages that if 6 billion people, that's all the people in the world, but let's say 6 billion people are playing Candy Crush and 1% of them are spending money on it.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's still a lot of people.
Oh, man.
So one of them spends $1 a month. How much money is that them making a month? And like when you start breaking it down like that and assume that there's going to be a few whales, like people that are just, they made a bunch of money on the stock market. They're really bored, so they'll be sitting on their yacht and they'll spend tons of money on Candy Crush. They'll spend like $1,000 on Candy Crush without even thinking about it.
Oh, I can't wait a day to play another level.
Yeah, screw that. I want to play now.
Before we go on to our fantasy releases, do you think, what would you compare this to Sony buying at this point?
Oh, Sony doesn't have the money to buy anything close to this.
No.
like what the if a like I always think that the funniest thing in the world is when you've got your PlayStation people who are like, Xbox has literally no games, and then the second Xbox does a merger like the Bethesda one last year or 2 years ago, it was a little while ago now.
It was just
the
last
second
year.
they do a merger like the Bethesda one, the first thing I see on all the PlayStation groups I'm in is people like, who do you think Sony should buy? We need revenge. And it's like, guys, I thought you had all the best games, and Microsoft had literally no games. So now Microsoft's gonna have some games, and you're just like, no, we need more because now PlayStation's got nothing. We need to fight back. It's like, oh, stop treating your platform of choice like it's a sport. Like, never use the word we. I don't say we when it comes to like Steam releases of things. I don't like we've got this locked down. It's like no. Valve does. I will pay Valve money for it if it's good. But I say the closest thing that I think they, in reasonable terms, what they could actually afford, which would benefit them. Assuming I don't think Sony should do this, because I think that it would pull focus and resources from the other games that they should be cultivating and working on. But Konami would be probably the easiest one because they could do not a full acquisition because they probably wouldn't be able to afford all of Konami, but make a licensing deal with their games franchises to be able to make Metal Gear games, Castlevania games, and Silent Hill games. Maybe Contra, but realistically, probably not going to make a lot of money on a Contra game. Capcom, maybe. I'd say most closely would be Square Enix. And I feel like that might actually be in the cards, what with the exclusives that Sony has been getting from Square Enix, like Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy 16. Final Fantasy 14 is only on consoles for PlayStation, which, by the way, I think that if Microsoft wanted to release World of Warcraft on Xbox, that could really put WoW back in the game in a big way. Because right now, Final Fantasy 14 is wiping their butt with WoW. Like, it's crazy
Final
how
Fantasy
good the
14
buzz
is like the
around.
success story of like a generation. They had to stop selling the game because their servers could not handle.
Yeah,
that
then
many
they hired
players.
Yoshi P.
But going
Yoshi
back,
P. He's like, don't worry, I'm going to cancel this game, but I'll bring it back. Don't worry. They're like, yeah, that's never coming back.
just to
Came
let
back
you know,
strong.
if Sony were to buy Capcom is worth today, which like means nothing because you have to be able to sell it, but it has a market cap of 4.77 billion. Konami's got a market cap of 7 to 8 billion as well, which got me going down. Like, for Sony to even compete with Activision Blizzard, they'd have to either buy Nintendo or Electronic Arts, which are worth 40 billion each, and it's still not the same.
Nintendo's not selling, and
Yeah.
EA, I could debatably see EA selling one day, like for significantly lower than that. Not necessarily to PlayStation. I think if anything, it's more likely that Microsoft will buy them. But I think that it's when you see a company's games sort of falling apart at the seams and they're releasing them anyways, like Battlefield 2042 and Call of Duty Vanguard, for example, or Warcraft Reforged. It's like, you guys, I don't think you people would be launching games like this if you weren't in trouble, or like some kind of trouble.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, again, I bring that up often when talking about Cyberpunk. I think that the reason Cyberpunk released in December of 2020 and not any time in 2021 is I think there was some pressure on them to be like, no. If it hits January 1st and this game isn't out, there's going to be trouble. And so I think that there was a gun to their head, not a literal gun, by the way. I mean, like a business gun, maybe an investor or possibly even the Polish government, because I know they got some funding from the Polish government for Cyberpunk, saying this has to happen now or you're in breach of contract. And they were like, I guess it's launchable. Like, yeah. I mean, it plays okay on PC. Whatever, the PlayStation people, they don't care about frame rates or performance anyways, and turns out they cared a little bit more than not at all. But yeah, so that's why that worked out poorly. But I think that based on those prices, Capcom would be a steal versus Konami. Like, really? Metal Gear's big, but Metal Gear isn't Monster Hunter, Resident Evil, Street Fighter. Like Capcom has some banger franchises that you could do a lot with. Whereas Metal Gear, you can pretty much just make Metal Gear games. Silent Hill, I guess you got some flexibility for horror games, but ultimately they're still going to be largely single player experiences that are pretty tight. And Castlevania, like, you can make two types of Castlevania games, a 3D Castlevania game or a 2D Castlevania game. And I don't think that unless they're like Metroid Dread quality, they're probably not going to be able to compete with the dozens of indie Castlevania likes that come out every year.
Yeah.
I would have said the same about Metroid Dread, but it turns out Dread was actually really, really good. Because I think that if it was an underwhelming 2D Metroid game, it would have crashed and burned. Like, people would just be like, yeah, there's indie games that you can get for $20 that are better than this. But I'm not to say that there isn't, but I think Metroid Dread is good enough that it can hang with the best of those indie games also.
I'm just going through a list of Konami games, and there is literally nothing here but the ones you mentioned. Like,
yeah, no,
except
those are
for a
their
bunch
only
of
big
these like
franchises.
Drum Mania games or Guitar Freaks
Oh yeah,
games.
well, and they have DDR. DDR's theirs, but like that's the thing. DDR, all their rhythm games are kind of out of fashion now. Not to say that they can never come back, but I think that once people realize that, like, the second you were looking at your third set of Guitar Hero guitars, it was like, wait, how many of these can I fit in? So,
yeah,
like there's like we've got two drum sets now because there's a different drum set for Rock Band and Guitar Hero World Tour. Like, what the hell is going on? And like at a certain point, you gotta just be like, okay, enough with the plastic instrument peripherals. And with DDR, I think the big trick is getting a competent dance mat that isn't just going to get torn apart, because they had the plastic ones that came out, but I find that even I've never been good at Dance Dance Revolution. I imagine now that I only have one leg, I will be terrible at Dance Dance Revolution, but playing it on a little flexible mat is not really the same as going to an arcade and playing it on like a hard plastic or glass, whatever, table that you're dancing on top of. But yeah, other than that though, Konami doesn't really have a lot. They've got Contra is probably their lowest tier series at this point. Castlevania, Silent Hill, or probably Silent Hill then Castlevania going from bottom up, and then Metal Gear. Metal Gear is probably their biggest one. But yeah, again, Metal Gear without Kojima, is that, although I guess technically Sony would probably be able to rope Kojima into making a Metal Gear game.
Yeah,
if they bought Konami. But
yeah, we'll see.
That would probably be the biggest upside to that. I'd be like, okay, well, at least we're gonna get the end of Metal Gear Solid 5 and a proper Metal Gear Solid 6 that finally ties the two timelines together. Or at least that's what I figured 6 was going to be. Just 6 is Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 condensed into one game.
So to finish this off, what do you wish Microsoft's new additions could be?
Okay, so these are total fantasy picks. Do you have your own? Can we go?
Oh yeah, I have my own. But you can go.
Okay, so first, number 1. Actually, let's not number these because I actually didn't think of those in any particular order. The Coalition, who is the Gears of War studio, making StarCraft Ghost.
Okay. It's not bad.
All right. It's your first.
Raven Software making the Star Wars Fallen Jedi 2 would be pretty epic too.
Well, yeah, that's EA, but now the Star Wars license is a bit more up for grabs, so I wouldn't count that in the terms of this exercise. But Raven, really? I don't know. Yeah, I guess Raven, their Wolverine game was sort of a similar kind of tone. I would think that if I was going to say anyone making a Star Wars Jedi game to that effect, it would be Ninja Theory. But anyways, did you have another one, or do you want me to go for my next?
No, go, man. You look like you are ready to roll on this.
Oh, I wrote a list. It's that big.
All right.
So the next one. This one, I've got to give credit to Sphere Hunter. Susie, she's another YouTuber who makes a lot of great Resident Evil videos. If you ever want to see some videos about Resident Evil, check out Sphere Hunter for sure. But she was saying, she didn't say the Sledgehammer aspect of this. I'm throwing in Sledgehammer, but the rest of the idea was hers. Was Sledgehammer making a Halo survival horror game about a Marine trying to escape the flood and being stalked by a flood-infected Spartan. So this is like people who have Dead Space lineage as far as development goes, making a horror game in space where you're just a Marine that doesn't really have a lot of ammo and stuff, and you have to like explore this ship or whatever you're in, where there's some flood, so like enough of them that you have to fight, but not like you're fighting in the end of Halo kind of big swarms of flood, though I guess that's kind of why they're flood. But it kind of like a Resident Evil style game where you're a Marine trying to escape, and the Mr. X or Nemesis style character is the Spartan whose team you were with has been infected by a flood. So it's like flood infected Spartan is like the thing that you're fighting against. And I think that is so cool. I was like, oh man, take my money.
Speaking of, do you think there's ever a chance just like Microsoft is just like, hey, Bungie, why don't you just come on home? Like, you know you deserve to
I guess
be here.
there's a possibility. I think Destiny would have to start really failing, though, for that to happen. Also, I mean, them doing that would really undermine 343. Like, if anything, I think they would just have to be like, no, 343 is the company who's going to be making Halo forever. If you want to quit Bungie and come work for 343,
Yeah, I guess so.
That works. Even if we have to hire everyone from Bungie and fire everyone at 343 to make that happen. But I think that from an optics point of view, I think taking 343 off Halo would be a rough move.
Yeah, especially with all the success of Halo Infinity War.
My next one is another Halo game, though.
Okay,
Infinity Ward making an ODST campaign for Halo Infinite.
Oh, wow.
But really messing with it. So not making like kind of Halo 3 to ODST where you sort of play like a Spartan even though your jump isn't quite as high and you don't have shields. Make it so that it's like full-on aim-down sights and plays more like a Call of Duty game, but in the Halo Infinite map, or like, I mean, I guess they could do new areas and stuff, just still existing in the same story and having it be made in the same engine. Which I think might take them some time to learn because the slip space engine is not based on id Tech stuff, which is what Call of Duty's engines were based on. But I think though that would be a really interesting pairing, that they made an ODST game made by a Call of Duty team that plays kind of more like Call of Duty than it does like Halo, but it's kind of still Halo also. I think that would be pretty neat.
Not to go down this Halo, like the fact that Microsoft only has Halo, but a Halo Wars game made by Blizzard would be pretty good.
Yeah, like if it was like the StarCraft team.
Yeah. But just so we're clear, like the StarCraft team that worked on the original StarCraft and probably even StarCraft 2 probably doesn't even work there anymore. But
yeah, actually I think a lot of them left to make one of those new studios. So remember there was a couple months where it seemed like every month there was announcements like, hey, good news, all these people from Blizzard have quit and they're now starting their own new studio.
Yeah. But a Halo Wars by Blizzard would probably be top of my list so far.
Okay. Next one. Ninja Theory, who are the people who made both Hellblade games, as well as Enslaved Odyssey to the West and the Devil May Cry remake, making a Genji and Hanzo game. Like the Overwatch characters.
Oh, wow.
The one that kind of plays like Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah.
So like not an Overwatch campaign, a single player ninja game where you play as these two, or maybe even 2-player co-op ninja game, whatever, where you play as these two brothers in the Overwatch world doing a story, but doesn't play like Overwatch. It plays like a Ninja Theory character action game.
Yo, did they do, who did the Tenchu games?
Actually, From Software did the most recent one, which is why Sekiro Shadows Die Twice was a Tenchu game when they started working on it. But then they eventually decided, now let's not tie this to Tenchu. Let's just make a brand new franchise. Funny though that Activision owns Sekiro too, or at least they published it.
Oh,
I don't know if they did a deal where From Software has
the rights,
control of it still.
Yeah,
but well, I mean, there's a good chance, at least as far as buzz has gone, that Bluepoint might be making Bloodborne 2. They made the Demon Souls remake.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that someone might end up making Sekiro 2, and it could end up being all right. But Ninja Theory, I think would probably be a good bet as far as that goes. I've got 4 more.
Go nuts.
Okay, so the next one. Playground Games, who make the Forza Horizon games, making a new Crash Team Racing.
Wow.
My idea hit the Crash Team Racing when I finally occurred to me that would be the move. But my original brainstorm there was Overwatch Kart. Because I don't know, you got a bunch of characters, they could have some wacky powers and stuff, but when you have Crash Team Racing on the table, I think you should just make a new Crash Team Racing and make it really good. Next up, Obsidian collaborating to write for Diablo 4. So, yeah, just have some people who can actually write good stories, writing a Diablo story. I think that will help, because Diablo 3 didn't light the world on fire story-wise, and from what I've been hearing about Diablo 4, it sounds like they don't even know what they're doing with it. So
and realistically,
I'm hoping that, in general, Microsoft can help smooth Diablo 4 out. Just make it a much more smooth process than it's been.
There's no release date for Diablo 4 right now, right?
No, and that's kind of the problem. And they've been talking about it and showing footage for like 2 years now. So it's like, you guys really don't have anything.
No, but at least that could be a good thing. Like, at least now they can delay long enough for Microsoft to get their hands into it, right?
Yeah. And I think most people with any Blizzard project now, like even Overwatch 2 and stuff, I don't think anyone's looking at their watch waiting for any of them to come out, because it's like, okay, this is clearly a disaster that they were going through.
Yeah.
And now Microsoft's going to step in and hopefully iron out the wrinkles. Next up, this is a bit of an out-of-the-box one. Are you aware of what Heroes of the Storm is?
No.
So it's like a MOBA, so like a League of Legends type game.
Yeah.
And it originally had all sorts of different Blizzard characters, like people from Overwatch, like Raynor from StarCraft, people from Diablo, like all these different characters from Blizzard being characters in this kind of League of Legends style game where it's top-down kind of real-time strategy, but you're only controlling one hero character, and it's a multiplayer game. Heroes of the Storm comes back, including all characters from Bethesda, tons of characters from Bethesda and Xbox franchises as well. So, like, you're roping in, like, the Doomslayer. You got BJ from Wolfenstein. You got Master Chief coming in. Like, you got Banjo-Kazooie. Like, just all sorts of people that, like, a bigger pool they can pull from. And releasing it on Xbox as well. So, Heroes of the Storm kind of failed as a MOBA, like up against Dota 2 and League of Legends, but I think now that League of Legends is kind of on a bit of an upswing, public opinion-wise, at least because of Arcane and the other spin-offs they've been doing, so I think now might be the time to throw Heroes of the Storm back into the mix. Next up, this one's probably a bit of an out-of-the-box one as well. Arcane, who made Deathloop and the Dishonored games, making an immersive sim set in Warcraft where you play as a mage. So, like, kind of the Dishonored type powers and stuff, but you're a mage in World of Warcraft. Or, like, not the World of Warcraft, but in the universe of Warcraft. Like, yeah, you can't say World of Warcraft without sounding like you're talking about the game.
This could be the end of the world of Warcraft.
The last one actually might be the end of the world if they do it, because it is bold and ballsy, and I don't know if they'd actually be able to even get the rights to it. But we've mentioned a couple times that Raven Software made the X-Men Origins Wolverine game with Hugh Jackman's likeness. Raven Software making a Logan game starring Hugh Jackman, and it comes out the same day as Insomniac's Wolverine.
Wow.
Just hard R-rated Logan, which is like the beloved R-rated Logan movie with Hugh Jackman. And it's like, yeah, we have a T-rated Wolverine game coming from the people who brought you Spider-Man. That's like, boom. Raven Software's back, and they've got a $200 million budget.
Wow, that would be...
I don't think that's ever going to happen. That one is not going to happen, though. I think there's a possibility that we might see X-Men Origins Wolverine, that was published by Activision, pop up on Xbox backwards compatibility.
Oh, yeah, probably on Game Pass, too.
Yeah, very likely. Because that one, I think they could probably still get away with making a new Wolverine game.
You know what's amazing is that we hate on X-Men Origins Wolverine because it is a pretty horrible movie.
It is not good.
But
the opening credits are all right, I guess.
Because of it, we got the Deadpool 2 ending sequence, which was amazing. Like, just based on it.
Deadpool 2? What happened?
He goes back
I've only seen Deadpool 2 once. He goes back. What does he do to...
He goes back in time and he kills original Deadpool from X-Men Origins.
Oh, okay.
He's like,
I think I only saw Deadpool 2 the one time, and it was actually in Thunder Bay while I was on my way up to the Arctic.
Wow.
We had like a stopover for like 2 days in Thunder Bay.
He kills the original Deadpool. He kills himself as Green Lantern. Well, he kills Ryan Reynolds reading the script, and he's like,
that's pretty funny.
But then we also got like the sick game from it too, like where Wolverine is actually chopping up people. I was like, yo, what is this?
That was just cut Raven Software off the leash and let them do something. And that's why I've been pissed that they've just been making Call of Duty for like the last 10 years. Because I'm like, guys, Raven is really good. Like, they made Jedi Outcast. They made Quake 4, Singularity, like the X-Men Origins game that's better than the movie it's based on.
Yeah.
They're really solid. And Hexen and Heretic. Like, they're an old school one. And now, actually, Raven Software is back in a place where they could make a Hexen and Heretic game.
Phil
because
Spencer
it's
actually
software...
mentioned Hexen by name. Like...
Well, yeah, because they've got Bethesda, who probably... Oh, actually, it might actually be Activision who owns the rights to Hexen. Because I think Raven owned it and Activision owned Raven. But it was always like an original id Software lineage type game. It was always Raven, but it was them kind of working with id to be like, hey, why don't we make Doom, but with wizards?
Oh, man.
But yeah, that's it though. That's the end of my list. The Gut Punch one was the Raven Software Logan game that comes out on the same day as Insomniac's Wolverine.
the Halo game playing against the Flood sounds pretty epic too.
Yeah, no, Sphere Hunter on YouTube. Check her out. She's awesome. And she tweeted that, and I was just like, that. I had to find the Fry Take All My Money gift because I'm like, honestly, I'd buy that. I'd pre-order that now, even if you told me it's coming out in 4 years. I feel like I'm gonna donate money towards making sure this happens.
But that's been the week so far and the new year so far. Like Microsoft starting off with a bang. Probably in the next week's episode, we'll talk about E3 being canceled, and not canceled as in they did something wrong. Just why? It's a good question. Why?
E3 called the wrong person fat this year. Canceled.
But until next time, remember, it's not be good.
It's get good, scrubs.